Good morning. Oh, my green screen is ungreen today. Um, Starting soon. Starting now. Uh, Yesterday, actually, we made some solid progress, and I tested this stuff. Talking about testing, maybe turn the chat on. Uh, I tested everything we did yesterday on my Windows system, and it just worked out of the box. But then we did cheat a bit, and let's put that on the back burner for now, right? Hey, you're in early. So, just a quick recap. What we're still trying to do, and let's get out of the way and actually open Xcode here. We're still trying to get basically the same game that I've been working on 9 different platforms for the last. Oh, this is Apple TV version. Well, whatever. For the last 7-ish? Well, to be honest, 10 years. Yes. Oh, this is the screenshot version. Yeah, that's not what I wanted to do. So let's do the iOS metal version and run this. So I did Fiiish for a game jam, I think about 10 or 11 years ago, and the topic was something like one button or single action, and so I wrote this little Fiiish game and then kept using it as my test bed to test out various things, abstracting the rendering interface, packing in data, debugging functionality, scripting, telemetry, did a little bit of ad integration at some point. I'm wondering, oh, the Apple TV is still in the background. Let's get rid of this. So, years and years and years of development. Well, a few hours here, a few hours there, and we did a large streaming thing last year when I rewrote all the tools in Rust because there were this mix of Ruby and shell script and Swift and C++ and it was just ugly. So we rewrote all of the built infrastructure is already running Rust, and I thought, well, we're so close. Let's just if it starts running at some point. If it starts running at some point. Is it stuck in a breakpoint? Yes, it's stuck in a breakpoint, obviously. Oh, look, we broke one of the textures. So this is a default texture, but you can imagine the fish swimming there. And we have animated textures here. Why did we break the fish animation, I wonder? That's interesting. Oh, we did rerun a data build yesterday, and maybe I messed that up. So, but basically, and then we have some UI system, and actually the UI system is, I can control it via keyboard or Joy-Con, and then I can control everything with a keyboard, or I can just use the touch interface and click. It's really sad that the fish animation is killed. So, but basically, that is the goal. Oh, look, the die animation works. I wonder why we killed the swim animation. That's gonna be interesting. But let's kill this, because this is not about the C++ version. This is about the Rust version. So yesterday we started to kind of abstract away our initialization logic, and then basically the app is the core of this thing. So this is basically the app, still a bit of noise in here, and this is the core render logic, and everything we render goes through the renderer. So the renderer here, and we can replace that. I'm not sure if I want to go full runtime dynamic or if we just pick the renderer at compile time based on the platform we're aiming for. Let's see. So yesterday we got to the point where you could draw triangles, basically, and then we used 2 triangles to make a quad, and then we used a loop to make a few triangles, a few quads, and then basically we ended up with is this. This is a bunch of quads. We have a pixel shader, a fragment shader. I keep saying pixel shader. It's just I'm old school. So we have a fragment shader that uses the screen position to set the colors. So all of that is working. We have timing working. And then in the end, the renderer, remember yesterday, everything was right, but I forgot to create the vertex array, right? So we didn't have a vertex area, so we were seeing nothing. Everything was there, but we didn't see anything, and that was because in compatibility mode, we can use buffers without vertex arrays, but in core mode of OpenGL we can't. And I'm so old. I started to use OpenGL somewhere in the 90s, so it's sometimes hard to get rid of all that old stuff. And to be honest, I want to. So, unpopular opinion, please kill OpenGL for good. I mean, Microsoft started to kill OpenGL 15 years ago. I think Apple joined in 5 years ago, and it's just layers upon layers upon layers of something that was good in the 90s, but isn't anymore. And yes, I will throw away a lot of knowledge, but having used Metal and Vulkan in the past, they're just the better APIs. I'm sorry to say, but they are the better APIs. So let's look into our to-do. I mean, shader from file, yes. Triangle with texture, yes. Except mouse position, yes. Maybe the mouse position is... Shall we do the mouse position first as kind of a warm-up before I go into the renderer cleanup? Because that sounds boring. Oh, boring. And sun just came out, so I might go for a lunch break actually today in about, I don't know, 2 hours. So let's do mouse position. So mouse position. I mean, mouse position, we have this window loop here somehow, and I'm pretty sure if I re-enable this, I just want to see what the event for the mouse is, actually. Yeah. So we get the new events, main events. I'm moving the mouse and clicking a few times. And maybe we can get rid of the dump of all the vertices at the end. That might be a bit much. Oh, that probably killed our... Thank you! So... where do we do the dump at the end? Oh man, that was yesterday. Don't ask me what we did yesterday. So when escape is pressed, or space, we just end the program. So move the mouse, click a few times. That's better. So where is my mouse movement? So we get a window event, and that event is cursor moved. And that gives us a physical position, which is probably the screen position in pixels. Is it? We don't do any scaling yet, so I'm wondering. So let's handle the event first, right? So the event is cursor moved inside the window event, right? So inside the window event, we have cursor moved. So let's do this actually. Window event cursor moved. Is it cursor moved? It's cursor moved, and that has a position, which is a physical position. So And we don't care about the rest, right? Let's just debug the position in this case. Warm up, just waking up, so give me a second. Actually, before we do that, I want to see the button. So that is a device event. A device event. And the event is button. So we have a device event, which we totally throw away. To do handle button. Guess that's the one we want. So let's start this again and see if you get mouse positions. So we do get the physical position, and the upper left is 0, 0. We might want to, we have to decide, right? This is 0, 0. This is actually screen height. This is probably 600 by 800. Yeah, roughly. If I can hit the absolute corner of it, I can't, but so the question is, do we keep it pixel perfect or do we normalize it, and where is 0? So do we want 0 to be up here or down here? The more natural thing would to have 0 down there. So let's normalize the mouse position over the canvas, right? So this is 0, 0, and this is 1, 1. So we do need two things. We need the screen size, which we probably should get somehow. I mean, we get a window resized, right? So let's see if we get this at least once. I hope we get a resized event on start and not only on resize. Fingers crossed. And apparently we don't. So, but if I do resize, I get it. So let's reduce the noise here for a moment. Would be so nice if the system just told us, hey, I opened the window for you, and by the way, here's a resized event so you can do all your size handling, but it doesn't. But if I change the size, I get the size. So I wonder where I get the original size from. I mean, we probably let's look into gluten window event, shall we? All of this as usually. I didn't do my usual morning round of closing tabs, so window event resized. And I wonder if there's a window event that says like opened or initialized or resized, moved, received, focused, changed, mouse wheel, mouse in. Mouse input is interesting, and touch is also interesting. So that doesn't seem to be. Okay. may have been transformed. It should not be used for non-cursor-like interactions, but we only have cursor-like interactions, so that's fine. We have a scale factor changed. I mean, this is when we move from a high DPI window display to a low DPI window, which we can just ignore, but okay, so I guess the actual window builder we can give a size to that window builder within a size. I wonder if we can. I like to just keep the default. I mean, I could just do with inner size, and that gets a size which is thank you for the what's physical and what's logical. I guess we go with physical size in pixels, yeah. So we do physical size, width and height, right? So we go wait. I wish there was a copy to clipboard button here in the UI. Maybe I've read something. So we do this and say width equals. Let's make it really obvious that we did something to it, right? So if we define the width and height, we know the width and height. So yeah, we get a really. What happens if this is bigger than the screen? What's the edge case handling there? Will it auto resize or will it? Okay, so if we go too big, we get the resize event. That's nice because otherwise we get a window that doesn't fit the screen. So let's say for now we go half full HD, right? So 1920 by 2, actually 1080 by 2, right? Just to have. So we start out in the 16 by 9 and can handle that from very, very early on. I'm wondering something is fishy with my stream. Oh, that's a joke you're gonna hear a lot, right? Something is fishy. I don't see my own chat, so give me a second. Yeah, and I know exactly why this is happening. My network died. So yeah, my network died, and I'm still streaming. So I'm streaming this via my Starlink connection, but everything else in this house is connected via my local connection. So I have two ways, and the local connection just went down. So let's try this again. Ah, and I see my chat. So where were we? In this means we can store the last size at some point. It actually to do, and that's future, right? Future ideas. Which, remember window position size and position, right? So if I resize it, I don't have to constantly resize that. And let's give this a reload too, because what the? Did they change something inside of Twitch? All my Twitch windows are broken. Okay. we were in the window. So obviously we want to have a set size and get size, and that actually, that is a good one, right? So do I need to remember the physical size, or can I ask? I mean, this is inside the window, right? So we do have the windowed context, right? So windowed context. Can we just ask the context for the current site and size? And nice. Now we can get the window, and maybe the window knows its size. I mean, we can always store it, but why store it if it's stored somewhere else? So scale factor will be interesting. We'll ignore that for now. So this is the inner position, inner size. So the window knows its inner size. That's nice. And we can do set inner size, which means we can have buttons to go to specific. So that's nice. So what we can do then in the let inner size equal window context window inner size, and that is a physical size, right? So if we turn this on again, warm up, first task of the day should always be some simple warm up, in my world at least. So mouse movement 960 by 540, and if we change the window size, that seems to be right? So that's good. So now we want to mangle the actual position. So we want to flip it upside down because we want Y to be the bottom, right? So let mouse Y equal, and that is basically, so if I look here, so if I'm here, I get a 0, but I want a 540, and so basically I subtract the actual value, the x value from the height, right? So I do inner size dot height minus, and actually I'm going to do SF64 minus, come on, minus position dot y, right? And then that's mouse. Yeah, we probably will create a vector too at some point, but I want to keep this rendering focused and ignore the math stuff behind it for the moment. So top left, mouse Y is 540, well, roundabout, because this is probably 540 up here, and then down here it's 0. But I also wanted to go from 0 to 1, right? So what I also will need to do is let age, just for typing, inner size dot height as f64, and then we do age here, and then actually we divide that by age, right? So now we should get mouse from 0 to 1. We should. I'm not saying we do. So this is mouse is, I'm looking at this value here, mouse is nearly 0 and mouse is nearly 1. So the width, and I'm gonna do this smack in the middle here. So the widths. Well, for the widths, we don't need to flip it, so it's just position x divided by w, right? And then we just do... Yes, we will use vector stuff here soonish, but this is all about the mouse. First coffee of the day, so left is 0 and right is... Oh. Something is wrong with our x. Oh, yeah, something is wrong with our x. Good morning. Good morning. Ding, ding, ding. So this is 0, 0, and this is 1, 1, and this is 1, 0, and this is 0, 1. So that sounds about right. So let's kill the debug and actually use our update context. And I'm wondering if we get a mouse entered and mouse left. Do we know if the mouse is currently over the screen? Actually, I don't care. I'm wondering if I should do the vector 2 now. Oh. Mouse X is F64, and I want the position here, and pop mouse Y is F64. Maybe this should be an option, or mouse X is 0.0, mouse Y is 0.0 in relative coordinates. And I'm not sure, once we go pixel perfect, if we want to stay integer and keep the original value. So we do have the window update context here, right? So we can just say window update context dot mouse X. We could just have assigned directly, but I expect the compiler to be smart enough, right? So our window update context now does contain the relative. I keep it like that because we might have a helper that does some magic later. So no more debug. Would be nice to see this, but we can just go into our app and maybe we want to extract this. Not for that we want vectors too. Do we want to do create container for vector2? Vec2? I think vector2. I think now is the time actually to do that, because okay. How do we do this? I want to right, so we have our vector2, pop struct vector2, and that has a x, which is x f64, and a y, and these are public, right? So, and then we have a pop impl vector2, And probably we have also for now a derive debug. And then we have a pop function new x f64y 64, and that has self x y, right? So that's that part. If we go into here, we have a mod vector 2, and then we have a pop use vector 2 as vector 2. I want to export it as mass vector 2 instead of mass vector 2 vector 2, right? Let's do a quick check if I did something super stupid because it's too early. So what we could do now is we could just say use create mass vector 2. I guess that should result in unused. Wait, oh, maybe, just maybe, pub mod, we should hook up mass 2. Just saying. Okay, and it says it's unused, but now we can actually use it and say we have a pub mouse position of vector 2, right? And actually I want to have a mouse pos vector 2, and it's always nice to have that 0, right? So let's go into vector 2 and actually add a helper that says pub function 0 is a self with self, x is 0 and y is 0, right? And then in our window, basically we say, oh, we could do this, right? We might want to set it as a vector, but so this is working, but the reason I was going here was, how about in our Fiiish app? Basically, this is render quad with size at, right? So if I have a pub function render quad, and that will need a mutable renderer. And that will then get a position. It's a reference to vector 2. And actually it's a render square, right? Well, it's not square right now because, let's say size, right? Let's say size, and that's also vector 2. So if we would copy this, just bear with me. I mean, how would we do this? So what we want to say is, well, it's actually Fiiish app render quad renderer, and we have a vector 2. Let's say pos. So say let pos equals vector 2 new x and y, right? And then we have a let size equal vector 2 new basically our size, this is basically 2 times size, right? So our size technically wasn't the size, it was the radius, if you could say that for a square. And then we do s size here, right? Then we remove this. And then we say wherever. So we need to offset the question. Do we want to define the center of the quad or the corner? And I'm leaning more towards the center, so we need to do some math here and basically say let pos just so we have a mutable copy, and then we say pos dot x equals minus equals size 0.5 times size dot x, right? Offset by half the size. And then pos dot y is basically the same, 0.5 times size dot y, and I have a typo. Actually, no, we add here, right? No, actually, no, we don't do any of this. So if this is pos dot x, right? All of these are pos dot x, and I almost did that right. So all of these are position dot x, right? And all of these here position dot y. It's just middle mouse and drag, and then I get multi-cursor mode. So, and this is basically so. Now we want to subtract half, right? Basically, let's mute size equal, and size is not HS for half size, equals size to get a copy, and copy we didn't implement the copy trait yet, and then we just say HS dot x, and x equal x is width, so HS dot x half the width and half the height. We could have a second accessor that allows us to access x and y as width and height, but I think it's straightforward enough. And here we just use half size dot probably doing something stupid here. I mean, I could just do the h dot y, right? So this will probably tell us copy not implemented for vector. Oh. Yeah. Good morning. Good morning. I am having so much fun. No, I have fun. Actually, I have a lot of fun with this. Whoa. Vector not found in this scope. Okay, so that's nice. So use create mass vector 2, right? Step 1. 5 down, 14 to go. Whoa. We don't need the precision, right? This will break in the window case now. So here you say SF32. It's always hard to decide. Maybe float 16 would be enough, actually. For 2D at least. So we're down to 4 errors and no implementation for integer times float. Wait, what did I... what was even the intention of this? I have no idea what I tried there. 2 errors, so we want to borrow the position, yes. I mean, technically we could move it, but that would make reusing stuff hard, so let's borrow it. HS is a reference, so the data it refers to cannot be written. I don't want a reference, I want to, so here basically I explicitly want to dereference it, right? And that now tells me copy, sorry. Yeah, so vector actually can be copy. And now you're telling me if it's copy, please allow me to clone it. Oh. So this works, and if I run this now, the world will go down under. It's still working. So we extracted our quad renderer already one level, and you can see where this is going, because now we have something that renders a quad, right? So what if at the very end here we just set render quad renderer. We do have so here's what we're gonna do. I want to have the mouse position, right? So let's say we have something like cursor pause, and that's a vector 2. And the cursor pause, maybe it should be an option, but let's say this is just a vector to 0, right? And then basically in the update we say self.cursor pause equals update context mouse pause, right? So we have the mouse position, but we want to make it the cursor. And then down here we could just say self.cursor pause, and the size actually is vector to new, I don't know, 0.5, 0.5, right? And we probably need a reference somewhere. Yeah, so we want to borrow this. And we actually want to borrow this as well. Here's where the move of the position might have been yeah, it's not called vec0, it's called vector to 0, right? We have to use the functions we have and not some we made up. Okay, so I can move this square now, and there's something wrong. And what is wrong is that we're using screen coordinates from 0 to 1 for the center of the square, and the mouse position is in screen coordinates, but the quad position is in NDC coordinates, because we don't do any mapping yet. So let's say we make this a bit smaller, well, a lot smaller, so it becomes more clear. And I wish I could touch the shader to change the texture to actually have a mouse pointer, but so here both are 1, right? And this is 0, 0 for the device, but 0.5. So we need to map 0 to 1 to -1 to +1, and that's actually quite easy, because actually let's do that in the update. So here basically we say cursor.pos.x is this, and this right hand side, well, this right hand side here goes from 0 to 1, but we want it from -1 to +1, so we need to do 2 times this, and then we subtract, then we offset, right? We scale and offset. We scale and offset, and you can argue maybe it's to highlight that our cursor handling is that we can get mouse input and the positions are nice. This is not production ready, so the quad follows the mouse. Can you even see that on stream? Yeah, you can. So the quad follows the mouse nicely, and I'm exactly in the middle of it. Well, it starts to get a bit dot. But the problem is when I leave we still have a mouse and it gets stuck at the end of the edge of the screen. I don't care too much right now, because we won't even use the cursor for Fiiish potentially, but it's nice that our positions are correct, and if I click, I would get the right position, right? So, talking about clicking, talking about clicking, it would be nice, it would be very nice to handle clicks, right? Wouldn't it be? That's, what does our to-do say? I mean, we want buttons, so we created a container for vector2 to do is extend vector2 with more functionality, right? But we want the button, so how are buttons handled? And we already kind of looked into this, so we have it in our history, I know it. Physical size, inner size, window build, window event, cursor. Probably the cursor left could say we could have a cursor is, oh, we could have a, you could use a cursor left and cursor enter to highlight if cursor is valid, right? But we really don't need that. What we want is mouse input, right? So mouse input has a state and a button. So mouse input has a state and a button. And mouse input is a window event. So okay, I want this above the keyboard because the keyboard is right now a bit. So we have a window event, mouse input, and then we want the state. We want the state, we want the button. and we want nothing else, right? So let's just debug stay struct, stay and button. That's all I want. Thank you. Let's see if we can get mouse clicks. And actually, so we get the left, right, middle. We don't get the additional buttons of my mouse, which are like a gazillion. But left, right, middle is nice. So I will just handle one mouse button for the moment, right? And we get a released. Actually, this is interesting because we do want to know. So in the window update context, pub mouse buttons bool. Oh, it's a bool 3, right? Left, middle, right. Probably should abstract that away. Have mouse buttons pressed. Ain't mouse buttons, everybody knows what we mean, right? So that is false, false, false. False, false, false. Boats, boats, boats. Sorry. Yes. So what we actually want to do in window, we want to say let button index equals match button, and this is mouse but gluten event mouse button. Left, and this probably should be an enum anyway, so, but for now, 1, 2, and all the other cases just map to 3. We get an out of bounds, but maybe we should map all other buttons just to 0. And then we say window update context mouse buttons button index equals state equals probably gluten element state. Gluten event element state pressed and released. I'm not so sure they were very smart with the abstractions. So if it's pressed, we set it to pressed. If it's not pressed, mouse buttons. This is a hack. Boilerplate infrastructure, new platforms. So it's true, false. If I press left, right, middle, and I can do all 3 and let them go in various orders, right? So that's nice, but we also want to know if it changed, right? So we somehow need to I'm wondering. So we have this, right? We actually want to get the action, so we need the delta to the last frame, correct? We do need the delta to the last frame. So what I will do is pop function update, and that doesn't need anything. Oh, yeah. So let's assume we run update and we have an internal previous mouse buttons, right? Which is the same type. I wonder if we encapsulate that internally or externally, but basically on update we say self.previous mouse buttons equals self.mouse buttons, right? So once per frame we store the last frame, and then we have a pop function was mouse button pressed, and that's a self button index usize, right? That's a bool, and basically that says the return value is it must be pressed right now, and it hasn't been pressed. Oh, it's self dot previous mouse buttons button index, right? So if it is pressed now, but it wasn't pressed before, then it was. If it's down now, but it was up before, then it was pressed in exactly this frame. So we need to call the update to actually, and I wonder if would be better to encapsulate that inside, because we need it for the keys as well, and could just have an array, but too much. So who owns the window update context, right? No, it's easiest to check who knews it, and that's actually the window. So when we do the function callback once per frame, where's that? So right here, window update context update, right? And I'm gonna remove the debug up here. Where is it? Here. And just add, well, in the app, right? So in the update, what I'm interested in, if voc was mouse button pressed 0, print line left mouse button clicked, pressed, it's not clicked. Right, so just to get the logic right, so I hope I didn't make a boo-boo here. Oh, I did. My bad. Doo-doop, doo-doop. And as you see, it's not working. I'm wondering if the assignment is not working. So question 1, is the update called at all? Yes, it's constantly being called. Oh, Oh, obviously, this update here has to be called last, right? Otherwise, the state will always be the same. Duh, we said previous state, not... Okay, now let's remove the debug here. I just need some tuning, some cleanup. So when I press the left mouse button, I get the... And even if I hold it, I just get it once, and that's what I wanted. Now, let's have some fun. What if we have a... I don't know. Click positions. And that is a vector of vector 2. Just saying, let me say click positions is vec new, right? And then we say whenever we hit this, we do our magic here and say, okay, let cp equal vector 2 new, and then it's basically the from other. Basically, we can say this is a copy, right? This is the cursor pos luckily has everything we need. And then we just say self.click positions.push cp, right? And I hope this does a copy. It should. So whenever we click, we add that to the array, and then we just do what if for cp in self.click positions, and we're gonna borrow that. We do this, right? Oh, not exactly. Let's make this a... Let's keep the same size and just use CP here. We're getting somewhere. So I can add new quads, right? I mean, let's go crazy, and this will probably... Let's say we do the same for the middle mouse button. But we don't use this. We said, what was the... We use the... just the state, right? So we don't use the click, we use the state. Middle mouse button is pressed, and this is was pressed. So was pressed is the edge, and is pressed is so. This will blow up so fast. I'm sorry, but I have to blow. So this still works, and now I hold the middle mouse button, and basically I can paint. We're creating gazillions of quads. I don't know how many quads there are now, but it's still running smooth, so actually self.click positions.lengths. I just want to know how many there are, right? So 200. So I think our renderer is pretty stable at this point. Well, it's still fast, so 1200. We just add one per frame right now, so Oi, oi, oi. I'm having too much fun, right? I'm gonna hold this till it crashes. So I think this is already more quads than Fiiish will ever need. I think the worst case was like 700. And I can let go and start down here. Congratulations, we made a very artsy drawing thingy mabooey. Actually, let's see how memory is doing. Well, it doesn't even show up yet, so it's probably fine. Oh, we can use activity to, which will probably core audio process name, other direction, and we have a, oh man, Fiiish is currently using, oh, we want the memory view. Also wrong direction. So Fiiish is currently using 64 megabytes of memory. So I expect if I keep holding this, so it slowly creeps up. 63, 69. So we could probably do this for like a day, and at some point the rendering will slow down, but I mean, if this was a pixel editor, we could draw every individual pixel with a quad. That's an interesting thought. So we're still drawing only exactly one. This is one draw call, right? This is all inside the render material. It's all one batch. So one draw call and GPU. I mean, 9,000 thingies. It's 18,000 triangles. Probably is gonna fall asleep before. I cannot break this. Well, we can try to break it and say, well, yeah, 4 in 0 to, let's say we add 100 with every iteration, right? I just want to break it at this point. I just want to break it. Yes, they will all render in the same spot. So we're adding 100, and now we have 20,000 quads being drawn. Still hitting 60 FPS, 50,000 quads being drawn. Frame rate is starting to suffer, so 70,000, 800,000, 80,000. So this is 200,000 triangles per frame right now, and we have 115 megabyte of RAM, which I don't care, and I mean, 100,000, 200,000 triangles per frame at 60 FPS is 12 million triangles per second right now. So we're not gonna hit that. I mean, we can go further. And you can see as well, I'm not sure if you can see it on the stream, but I can see this getting slightly slower. So 50 FPS, I want to hit 200,000. Maybe I add another 0 because this is taking too long. So 200,000 at 45 frames. Let's go crazy. Let's go crazy. So 100,000, 60 frames. 200,000, 46. 300,000, 30 FPS. 400,000, 33. 500,000, and let's have a look at the memory. So memory is still below 200 megabytes, so 28 frames, and let's go to 1 million quads, which is 2 million triangles per frame. In one render batch. In one render batch. Let's draw it all. I mean, overdraw the draw optimization kicks in probably. Well, we disabled the z-test, so I can feel it getting slower. You can probably see it here in the animated background, but for a 2D game, I think, I mean, it's untextured, so we probably would be hitting so 1 million quads, 2 million triangles. Memory is still a joke at 300 megabyte. And basically we're hitting like 16 FPS. I wonder if my FPS counter is broken. Oh, it's not drawing every seconds, it's drawing every 180 frames, and at 14 FPS it just shows like every 10 seconds. So oh, this is far beyond what we ever need. So what we can do is run debug. And I would expect things to get much worse, much faster, but so let's do 50,000. I mean, memory is still okay, and so the GPU doesn't care, right? But you see it's lagging, and that's probably because memory is still fine. If I look at CPU, it's eating up 92% of the CPU time, so iterating over that click pause to map it into. I mean, you wouldn't do that. We would probably go an instant way, but I mean, still can do individuals. So this is all good. I mean, and it's kind of all due to it's mostly due to this here. It's one instance, it's one batch, and you could split it down into multiple batches, which might make it faster actually. So you would only do like the first, I don't know, 3,000, and then start at 3,000 and do the next 3,000, and that's dependent on this local setup. But I would say accept mouse input and position is done, right? Plus a bit on top. Plus a bit on top. And I'm pretty sure during the commit, oh, we don't need this anymore. Accept mouse input, handle mouse input, draw test quads at mouse and click positions, right? Add vector to wrapper, which will come in super handy. So we updated the to-do, we added the vector to and use it. We have a little bit of fun with the app, but that's fine. I mean, we want to test this thing to death. We extract quad renderer into function, and this block here needs to go. So no, that's Fiiish app. That I left that in case I broke something, but I didn't. So basically, this is our call to draw a sprite, right? This is draw a sprite at this position, and that's what we need for our 2D game. So that's good. We stage this. We added mass. We check the use defined window size, half full HD. We handle cursor moves and mouse inputs. Yes. We add them to the window update context. We added mass. Basically, we did add mass and re-export in a nicer way, and that's our vector 2. So let's commit this, rebase and push. And as always, I need to close a few of these tabs, I guess. As always, everything is here. So if you want to have a play with this, I need a 5-minute break, but just to make sure we didn't break it during the cleanup. We should have done that before pushing. As always, see you in a few minutes. And I'm back already, so it's sometimes having a bit of fun with what you got so far is yay! So let's. The thing is, it's nice and sunny outside. I'll be at it all week long. It's my week off from work, so I want to get some exercise and outside and fresh air. So how about we do a bit more of cleanup, like I don't know, half an hour to an hour. I take a break, go for a bike ride, some ice cream, maybe, and then we go into the hardcore stuff later today. So yes, custom shader from file and texture would be nice. I actually want to do this next. And before I do this, I want to move quad renderer into renderer, right? I mean, it's kind of, where's my, so this does not belong here, right? This just does not belong here. So what I will do is I'll move this into the renderer. Stone cold. So, I mean, basically, that means we don't get the renderer, we just get the self here, right? And then we do the self, baby. I don't know what I've been, and this can go. And then in the Fiiish app, let's comment this out for the second, in case we break it. And then this becomes, just for reference, this becomes renderer dot render quad with position and size, right? And then same here and here. I'm just gonna, and same here, dot remove the renderer because it's inside, and suddenly, so we implemented the code, realized, oh, this is something generic we need, so we extracted it close by into function for easy development, and then we moved it to where it probably should belong. Shall we see if it's still working or if we totally broke it? Oh, obviously vector 2 is not found because the renderer doesn't know anything about vector 2, but that's easy, right? And it's still working as before. So let's do this. This was a pretty obvious step, right? So this can go. And oh, funny thing is we have this artificial sleeps in here. So I want to, we actually made the rendering slower than it needed to be. So let's see what happens. We wasted basically half of the frame time in waiting. So let's go to 500,000 quads, which is 1,000,000 triangles. And can I get a frame timer, please? It's still running at 30 FPS. So the GPU obviously now starts to struggle a bit. Actually, I want to try one thing. I'm gonna do a git fetch on my Windows system here, which is a new box, so it's not hooked up to the, thanks for turning on the camera. I mean, duh. Talking to you but not being here, you probably muted the screen and don't see that I'm back. Well, so I just did it, git fetch on my Windows system, rebase, and run this in release and just see if this runs on Windows. It's always good during development to. So this box is so much faster. I mean, it says it's 3070 in it, so I'm up to 500,000 quads, and it's running at 40 FPS. I'm having some weird issue with the NDC not updating, so when I resize the window, I need to update the OpenGL context, which we will do at some later point. But I mean, at the million triangles quads, it's still running at 30 FPS, so that should be fine. Actually, I'm baking bread. I should actually have checked on my dough. Okay, so we wasted basically 4 milliseconds here and 9 milliseconds here, which were kind of hidden in the GPU load, but still. So the to-do, actually, this was a quick one, but sometimes they are. But it's still interesting for somebody who uses this to see what we did. Right, so updated the to-do. This is what we moved away, and this is where we put it. Move quad rendering into renderer, and remove artificial slowdown. Now, remember yesterday when we did this ugly hack with this here, where we have the compile shader and didn't do error checking, and I want to get rid of this. So I could just wrap this in something called a program. Sorry about that. And that's probably what I will do, right? I want to keep the GL error. So I'm going to create a utility class for the renderer. I will create a debug for the renderer. So touch source renderer debug. Debug meaning when we turn it off, all the calls will be free. So if I go to the renderer, for now I just hook this up. And I'm really not a fan of mixing. Let's see. And then we have it. And actually we do the pub use debug as debug. I wish there was a way to say, hey, mod debug, but please export with auto. Hey, how you doing, Toggle? Making solid progress on the renderer actually. So I wanted to have an untextured triangle by the end of today, and oh, let me fix this real quick. I wanted to have an untextured triangle by the end of the day, and We didn't open the window manually on macOS, but that's okay. And now we can render like 100,000 quads at 80 FPS, or 200,000 quads, or 300,000 quads. And now we're doing a bit of clean up, and then I'm gonna go outside because it's Sunday, the sun shines, I need some fresh air, and then later we add shaders and texture loading. Well, we do have shaders, but we add configurable shaders and texture loading. And last night I just said I made a lot of mess, and we tried to push it across the finish line, and all the shader loading here is kind of You're doing word wrapping. Yeah, word wrapping we don't do actually in Fiiish. So in Fiiish, actually, if I run this again, funny thing is I did Fiiish 10 years ago, 10, 11 years ago, and one of the goals was, come on, launch it. Ignore that the fish texture is currently broken, and we have a breakpoint here. So we don't have a lot of text. I mean, the only text in the game is basically the 0 or 6 up here, so the coins and meters. And I think that's the only text in the game if you ignore the debug up here. Oh, and then obviously the scoreboard when you die also has some text, but other than that there's no text in the whole game, so there was no need to implement word wrapping or anything. Oh, true. I mean, the settings are basically turn music on and off, which is an icon, and turn sound on and off, which is an icon, and some debug info, but that doesn't need word wrapping. And you probably can see that the kerning is currently messed up because the space has no widths. So we cheated around that a bit. I mean, the nice thing is this is a full distance font based, yeah, but monospaced fonts. Oh, so it's probably hard to see because I was smart enough to use white on yellow, but we can align text. You can left, right, and center align, and even dynamically shift it by percentage with this. The thing is, my tool chain, it doesn't matter if it's monospaced or not. At some point, I just broke the spacing I removed the characters for the space because they're empty, and in that case, the width is 0, and then yeah, alignment. It's gonna be fun in itself, but let's ignore the Xcode version and go back here. So font rendering. Looking at the timeline, I think we'll have that by Wednesday, depending on how nice that outside is. So if I end up going on a 4-hour bike ride, yeah. So we wanted to move the debug stuff, right? So for example, the checkGL error. I want to move the checkGL error into the debug. And that means let's do a bit of cleanup because we just need this, right? That's the downside of this formatting. Downside. Can I get Xcode out of the way, please? Push bike, my motorbike, my battery is dead. Well, my battery is been recharged, but something's broken in the wiring, and I don't know. We have the TÜV here. I think it's the English term is MOT, and it expired. Well, it will expire tomorrow, so, and due to lockdown, I can't get to the garage and can't get it fixed. So just some exercise. Wrecked. That's what got my... Yeah, that's probably... No, she's in super good shape. I mean, my dad used to be a car mechanic, and my brother is a car mechanic with his own shop, and both love motorbikes. So whenever I bring my Zuzis there, they take such good care of her. I mean, if you looked at her, she's 22 years old now, has I think 180k kilometers on it, and you could say she almost looks like from the factory. So that's a nice thing. But the wires inside, I mean, 20 is in probably something. I'm wondering if an animal got in and started to chew through all the wiring. So let's clean up this material, right? So the check GL arrow, actually I want this gone. And instead we use render the debug, right? So wherever that means we have to, so wherever we do this, we need to do this, right? And probably want to, that's like gazillions of places. Yeah, I'm gonna remove them all for now, because we know it's all working, right? That was yesterday when we debugged the stupid vertex array object mistake. So you'll be going at it all day long? Oh, it's private. Thank you. It's so much easier to refactor code in C++ than in Rust. That's the only downside, because signatures change based on where stuff is. And actually, I'm wondering, line number now has no real meaning, right? I mean, we also want the... I wonder if... I actually wonder if... I have too many windows open here. So standard line. I wonder if there's a standard file. Standard file. Oh, that's nice. That's exactly what we want, right? Standard file looks nice. So we change the signature of this to be in this. We go for the standard syntax. File line. And then in the caller, we just say, we probably could do a macro, right? We probably could create a macro that expands standard file and line automatically. But let's see. We have a whole week to fix this mess. So how can I make sure this actually breaks? I mean, we can just say... Let's intentionally break GL, right? So let's say we compile a shader that just is not there. Yeah, file and line is so helpful, because then you don't have to manually and can just sprinkle them. I mean, I just compile a shader that I never created, so I hope that breaks. I have lots of experience in breaking OpenGL. Let's say 25 plus years. So we do get a GL error in material RS line 100. And if this was an IDE, this should even be clickable, which is... So that works. And the GL error is we get invalid value, which makes sense because 99 doesn't exist. And it's the check is in material. So that works. That's nice. And then probably I want just to have a okay. I don't want, but what if we had something like this that automatically magically did the I don't want to get into macros right now. No. But then we could just copy and paste this, splatter this everywhere, but now we just splatter this everywhere. So that's part one, add the debug functionality. And then the whole shader and program handling, I actually want to have a program in here, right? So what I want is actually touch source renderer. And this should be renderer GL, but then we can map it. And right now we only have GL. So let's not. Mod program. Actually, nobody outside. I'm not sure if I will regret this pattern, but it reads so much nicer to me to use render a program instead of render a program. So let's see if this bites us and we undo a lot of that, but that's just refactoring. So I'm not too worried. So pop struct program. I really need, I mean, all of this up until this point just needs the name, right? So this could be a keyboard macro that says now type program and this is set up. So what does a program need? Let's actually put the material on this side here. What do we actually want from the program? I mean, we need to use crate. Oh, my mouse just ran out of juice. So another sign that I go outside once we have this cleanup done. So what do we actually want to do? I mean, obviously we want to the program. So we want to add a shader, right? So we want to add a shader, and we're gonna pass through the GL shader types, right? So and that type is, oh, I need a wider screen for this. I just, I want to be more explicit, so I'm gonna have an enum shader type, right? And that shader type is vertex or fragment for now, and that's all we support, right? So I want to have a function add shader. It's a mute self, and that's basically type is shader type, and the source is, do we want a source or an array of sources at this point? Let's just do a zero terminated, well, it doesn't even have to be zero terminated anymore, right? So add shader, actually we can toggle the sidebar. So return type to be defined. Basically what we do is this, right? Plus error handling. Is this what we want? Is this what we want? Let's copy this here for reference. Basically what I want here is I want to use the renderer program, and then we have the program here, and that is a program, and then on the new I say I wish there was auto initialization. And then what I want to do here is it can actually be outside of the unsafe in that case, right? I mean, all of this is the stuff we want to replace. So what I want to do is basically s.program.add shader, and then we say program shader type is vertex. Oh. Ooh. And then we just say vSource, right? I mean, this is what we want, right? And then we do the same. So basically, add shader type fragment, and then we say program link, right? So add and compile, but I think that's implicit. So this is the add, this is the second add, this is the linking with the attaching. Yeah, obviously that's one of the reasons why I have this in here, because I want to do the whole debug handling, error handling. But that was late yesterday, so we just checked if the log length is 0, and it was. So and this program status actually we want to do in the linking. So let's stop this out. Pub function a link, and this also will need some error handling, right? So, but that is what I want, and now this is not gonna fly because I did the magic re-export trick, which pub mod use. Oh man, I need a break. Pub mod use. So type obviously was a bad idea, I admit it. So type was a very bad idea there. Wait, what? Now Why does it work with debug and not with program? I mean, module handling in Rust is still... Yeah, that's exactly what I want to get rid of. So here's the thing, I don't want to have to do this, right? Yeah, take the program out of the program. Well, we do this for now, maybe. Yes, because we started with a byte array, but maybe this is a string now. Well, let's not change too many things at once, right? So maybe what we want is not this, but const vs source equals this, right? Maybe that's good enough. Oh, arrows up and arrows up and arrows. Wait, what? In program rs line 2. What? I what? And that was our redefinition, right? So this works now. Oh, this worked. The first part works, so. And then I'm not sure. I'm not sure this is the smartest of ideas. Let's experiment, right? We want to... Shader type is private, that is correct. And while we're at it, no harm in debugging an enum, right? Maybe we should just use a star here. Maybe we should just use a star here. This is all internal, so... Oh, yes. Yes, totally. I mean, really? That's what you want? I mean, the fragment, as soon as the vertex shader works, we do the fragment shader. So yeah, same pattern down here. Actually, we shot ourselves in the foot by doing it. We made our life harder by doing it the hard way first, but... Oh. Obviously. I mean, in the whole rendering logic, we probably don't externalize arrows and just pretend it works. So this is okay, right? So and then obviously somewhere down here we have use program. So basically what we do here is self.program.use, right? So we need a use. And we do everything as late as possible. So what do we have here? We have the shaders. And let's use a hash map shader type. And that is, that's just this, right? We could probably store the string for later. And then we have the program shader IDs, and we have the program ID, which is also this. So shader IDs is just hash map new, and program ID is just, I don't know, GLU int invalid, something like that. And then we actually do this, right? So let's do this. I mean, this is unsafe. Let ID equal GL create shader. GL shader type equals match shader type vertex GL vertex shader type fragment GL fragment shader. Thank you for the missing colons. And all other is to do. Right? Create shader of the GL shader type. And then we say GL shader source for this ID. We just have one, and that's an array. And that's basically the source as a pointer. As const underscore, and that then as a pointer. Let's make this green. Thanks for the follow, Scientific Cool. How's your Sunday going? As const underscore. So that is the array of, oh, there's a comma missing. Let's actually, now that we have it extracted, so this is the array of shader sources, because we can concatenate and give it multiple pointers. And this is the array of lengths, and since it's 0 terminated, we just give it a null, right? And then we just say GL compile shader ID, and then we say self dot shader IDs insert shader type comma ID, right? And then just to make sure we didn't check GL error, standard line file and standard line. This is gonna be so wrong. This is gonna be so wrong. Yep. Oh, come on. We didn't. Now you're just trying to get me to go on a bike ride, right? Get me to back on a ride. And we forgot all the imports. Yeah, fine. Use, create, renderer, GL. Where's the hash map in? Is it standard collections? Standard collections, yep. Std collections. So lots of boilerplate that will change soonish when we get more to the meat, but yeah, thanks, I caught that. There seems to be some quite a bit of lag today. It would be so nice if I could use here. I mean, activate. 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 Let's say we bind this, right? I don't like to do find better name. Use is Rust keyword. I mean, it could be smart enough to say, hey, I know you don't want to use here. Yeah, no, I never ignore the chat. Sometimes I just too late. Use of undeclared debug, yes, because we never. No, I do this on stream because I want some interaction. So otherwise, I could just do it alone. No method activate found. Oh, I didn't press save. Saving helps. All I want to do is to get to the cleaner. Okay, we need EQ and hash for the shader type, or probably partial EQ is partial EQ hash. I mean, fair enough. If I want to use it as a key, probably I should make it so far so good. So this is the add the shaders. And this is basically this. This here is this. And this here is this. And this we still want to do. And then the link is basically the create program, attach all the existing shaders and then link it together. Unsave. So we said let id equals gl create program. And then we say for s in self dot shader IDs gl attach shader ID comma s. Let's call this s ID ID, and then we just do a gl link loop destroyed. Yeah, obviously link program of the ID. And then we say self.program ID. We just store this, right? So that's this part here, and error checking to be done, but at least check if we did something insanely stupid. Actually, let's move this check here outside as well. And then the binding is actually just the use program, right? So it's unsafe gl use program self dot program ID. That's it, right? So we remove this one here. Up here we did everything. So in theory, apart from some cleanup, I can do that? Oh, that's interesting. Why did we found it? Oh, for do we have values? I'm gonna rewrite that bind in a second because I want it to be called use. Okay, so close. So close. Oh? Probably world explodes. Oh! So we didn't completely break it. I want to try that use thing. So what are you saying? I can call this here r hash use. Can I just use use here then? Or do I have to use r hash use in both places? I'm not sure of that having the say. This looks. Yeah, I get what you're saying, but let's use the ruse. Yeah, the R hat, but it's a ruse, so I let it stand for now. So the nice thing now is, okay, so this has been replaced by this, which is much more readable. All of this has been replaced. I want to keep this here for reference. Oh, this reference we don't need anymore. And then I actually want to keep this for reference in the linker. And then all of this is suddenly gone, and this is so much easier to read. The shaders we add here, these strings need to be zero terminated right now. Let's see. I mean, we could just use the sizes here, and then they don't need to be zero terminated. But let's step by step. So step one, I want to check the shader output. So after the compile, I want to do this. And then just debug the log lengths. Actually, this is ID here. Well, the thing is, the log lengths will be 0 right now, right? So the log length is 0. But if I break the shader, let's say broken, the log length will be non-zero, right? It should be. So the log length is 46 now. So what I want to do is, if log length larger than 0, to do get actual log, and I don't want to go there right now, but at least I want to say warning, log lengths for right, so we got log lengths and then we get source for shader, and then I want the shader type here. Right, so at least we still don't do anything with it, but we at least see something is broken. Yeah, sometimes the log length is 0 even if there's junk in the shader, but for now this is good enough. You can also get the status. So for now this is good enough. I mean, we see that we get the empty rendering and can go, oh, what's wrong? Wait, wrong shader or something weird going on. So for me, that's good enough. So let's unbreak this and quickly test that this also works for this one. I mean, usually you have a shader verifier tool anyway, so that will be it's the last point of return. So this should never trigger, but it's nice to have this here. So that's the shader compiler, and the linker. Let's actually do the same. So let's do the same. And this is actually the ID. So this is just for the case while we're developing, we're loading the wrong file or our packager broke, or so status is 1 and 1 is true, so that's okay. So how do we break this? Let's say we have a typo here and the vertex shader actually has an out of screen post 2 and the fragment shader has an in of screen post, and now the linker should say, I don't like this. So we get a status 0, which is a false. So basically what I say, if status not equals 1, then print line warning failed linking shaders into program. And at this point we don't have the shaders anymore, tough luck. I mean, we could extend this type here. This could be a tuple or something where we have the shader source and the debug. I mean, I don't care because this will just not happen, but at least I get the info, and we can get the info log lengths for the program as well, I guess. All I want is this little bit of, hey, there was something wrong, and then you don't debug forever. So we said, okay, it's the linker that failed, and that's why nothing is rendering. And if we unbreak this here, so I was talking before I pressed the mouse button stupidly. Here it says warning, failed linking shaders into program, and if I fix the program, I don't get the warning and everything's rendering nicely. By the way, Toggle, did you ever fix that one offset pixel thingy? I mean, I just realized you could render every pixel as a quad and then be done with it. I mean, it should render millions, but I did not. Yeah, I think I know what your problem is, but it's so hard to explain. If I was sitting in front of you with a piece of paper, we could probably work it out in 5 minutes, but yeah, I think the cursor on the texture is the right thing. Then you don't have. Basically, you have two coordinate systems that start at different offsets, and then you have rounding errors inside. Yeah, bring your bike. As soon as we can meet without masks, I'm totally up for that. Actually, you know me. I will not be able to resist to hack on your code a bit at some point, but I want to do Fiiish first. So this is working. This is working. So we remove this. I mean, this already looks so much nicer. I'm still not happy about this. So what happens if we remove the zero termination here? Shall we? I mean, basically, my GPU will try to compile forever. So it says, hey, I could probably get the log and pixel perfect precision in OpenGL is a nightmare. You could probably use a full, just render a quad or a triangle that's big enough to cover every pixel on the screen, and then just do the lookups from the various textures in the shader. It's not made for that. So what it's trying to do right now is just read memory forever, and then it just crashes somewhere in a buffer that was not allocated. So, but we don't need the zero termination because we have this null here, right? So if you go into GL shader source, I mean, yes, it will need calculation of the lengths, but I think that's actually better. So the last parameter is an array of lengths. So if I just do, instead of this, I could do source dot length. And the nice thing with this is this will just scan for the zero while parsing it, and this will scan for the zero and then send the answer, and it will still parse it. So we basically scan the string twice. But if this is our performance bottleneck, then I don't know. And I mean, usually your files are not zero terminated, right? And Rust doesn't have. Oh, obviously, talking and typing. Yeah, and especially these will be coming from an external file. So I don't want to tack on zero. I mean, we could also just copy the source and append a zero, right? You could just do a. But I think this here is nice because that means the caller can say, okay, I don't need a zero termination. And how often do you load shaders, right? It's not like you load shaders 100 times per frame. You load them once at program start, maybe if you switch game modes or change settings, but then I don't care about the performance. And how long are shaders? I mean, how long does it take to scan, I don't know, these 8 lines? So I don't know, less than 100 characters in total. Okay, there might be a 5K changer occasionally, but I don't care. So will you be streaming today, Toggle? Only Monday to Friday, so next week we'll have a little bit of conflict, right? Because I have my week off and I want to stream all week long to get this game done. Oh, maybe I'm done tonight and then... Oh, while looking at this, so this is a line mode. Oh, you did end up using that, right? But I find it's helpful to debug stuff, especially when you work. So with triangles that don't align nicely. That probably should be toggleable via a keyboard shortcut. Blending, this is on. I think that was our cleanup, right? What was our actual to-do? Encapsulate shader and program. This doesn't look too bad. We can add more error checking and the material became much clearer now that we just use, hey, do this. This could even come from a config file, so I mean, this will fall apart if we add multiple shaders of the same type. Which I never do because I combine them, but yeah. So in theory, you can have multiple vertex shaders and multiple fragment shaders to have bits and pieces, but I never do that. I usually pre-combine them in the packaging, so I don't care that much, but we could just have this to be a list of tuples of shader type and GL type, and then just push that. Actually, maybe that's... So what if we did shader IDs is vector of shader type. Probably we should have a struct for this. And then, I mean, the only thing that's different is... Where do we push this? So the insert is suddenly a self.shader IDs push of the tuple, right? And then the iterator in the linking here would be for I don't care in SID iter, right? That's all. Is it? Oh, almost. Where is this? Yeah, here. And then this is just a vec new, which probably is... Well, if somebody says this vertex shader is a fragment shader, he will not get rendering output, and quite frankly, if you want to do that, I mean... So this works, and now I actually prefer this, so, I mean, you would have to parse the source to analyze. Can you decide by looking at the code what it will be? I mean, probably a vertex shader tends to write the GL position, and a fragment shader tends to write the frag color, but not always. So in the end, it's just shaders into a program and how they interleave, how they're used. I don't care. I mean, this means we could in theory also store the source code, and then if they don't link together, we just dump them all, but... But this does get rid of the... Well, I keep this in for one commit. for reference for future, or if any of you want to use this. So encapsulate shader in program, and let's see what the diff looks like. We updated the to-do. We added some stuff to the renderer. We use more. We replaced the ugly static byte array with a zero terminator with just a flat old string. This got moved to debug. We probably don't need these three anymore, right? We just don't need these three anymore, so we can remove them here. And let's do a quick check if we still use them somewhere else. Come on. So that's still working. So we removed a lot of stuff. We replaced all the shader logic by just add shader link. I mean, that's why we did this cleanup. And then we removed a lot of GL checks. And then I'm not sure about this R hash use, to be honest. It's the order of the programs doesn't matter, right? So let me go through this commit real quick. So this is the renderer, and we added the check GL with a file, and we pulled out all the project program logic. So extract GL program handling. So if I do these in the wrong order, nobody cares, right? So if I give it fragment first and then vertex later, it doesn't matter because the linker just takes everything and it still works. I don't know, depends a bit on the weather, but probably it's 2:30 in the afternoon or 2:40 in the afternoon here right now. And I probably do from 10 to 2, then take a nice long 2-hour break and then another 4 hours. But you know how these things go, right? Sometimes you're in the groove and just go on for 8 hours without drinking or eating or breathing. And other times you get stuck 20 minutes in and are like, oh. Yeah, please do. And if I end up stopping while you're still on, I'll probably do the same. So, well, probably I will do the same. If I remember last week when you did the big raid on me, I had like 110 people at the end of the stream and just closed the stream and was like, panic. But everybody was still there, so I could still raid. That was a bit, hey, I'm not used to this. I'm a software developer, not a TV star. Yet. Oh, that being said, I used to do radio, broadcast radio for like 15 years. Still not getting used to see my face. I mean, hearing my voice is the easy part. Yeah, I don't care if I have 10 viewers or 100 or 5,000. I mean, I care about the viewers, but I spoke at conferences like CeBIT in Hanover in front of 8,000 people, or taught at university with sometimes 300 students in the room. So that's okay. I love the sharing knowledge part of it. And if somebody wants to throw rotten eggs because he thinks I'm talking nonsense, well, better duck and cover. Yeah, I miss doing radio. I started at a local broadcast station, and that was while I was still at school, and I had the graveyard shift from 2 a.m. till 5 a.m. So nobody was awake, and then after my shift, I went home, took a shower, went to school, and that wasn't going well. And then I did, how do you say it, non-commercial radio every other week, 2 hours, just music. And I love doing that, and I miss that. So this is kind of good. I love the teaching part, and as I said last time, if I have a stream schedule, it forces me to sit down and actually work on this stuff. So actually, did we end up pushing this? Yes, we did. So I will paste everything. Everything will be open source. Well, the code will be open source. The assets like the fish or the planks or all the UI stuff, I cannot open source because I worked with an artist to create them, and she won't release the assets. But during the stream, I'll create some dummy assets that kind of show that it's still working. And let's see, maybe ship a Windows version or Steam. Oh, Fish Steam in Rust. Should we go for Steam or Epic Store? Let's go for Steam. Let's get a Rust game in Steam. Let's make it Fish. Steam? Okay. Talking about Steam, I'm gonna, and I need to hook this up, I'm sorry, but here is my Windows PC, and I just fetch and rebase and run, just to verify it's still working. And it is, still with the broken viewport stuff, but I can draw. Nice. So cargo run, it probably will also work on Linux out of the box with some nitty gritty around the corners. So what we will do later, we still want to load the shader from file, right? We don't want the shader in the middle of our material. So that will need multiple steps. I don't want to have file loading in the game. Well, I don't want to have raw file loading in the game. I want to have some kind of resource manager, even if that just is a thin wrapper against the file system. But then later we can just extend that, and resource managing is nice because we can do stuff like hot reloading and auto reloading and live editing of shaders in a running game. Absolutely no problem. We'll do that. So we need to do add basic resource manager, and also obviously we want this material. I mean, assume we can load them via files. So we say, hey, resource manager, give me a shader that has this context. Obviously, the material should not know that, right? So the material needs some kind of material config. So we probably will add a material builder probably. And that's with a custom shader. And then the triangle with texture will need texture coordinates. So the material builder, right now we just have hard coded the fact that we have 3 floats per vertex. That needs to go. I see nothing that should prevent this from a, yeah. Yeah, it's Streamlabs is like Streamlabs is not the smartest. Everything that has a dot in it is automatically and actually if you post a lot of these, actually let me Yeah, it's keep posting links and you will be banned for good. But I can't afford a human moderator, so it keeps out the shady guys who post links to shady websites. Okay. Yeah, the whole stream setup thing is, I mean, maybe somebody could write a Twitch command line interface that allows to do all of that. Wink, wink. Okay, but I think I want to get here before the end of the day. And that being 3 p.m., I'm gonna take a little break and go for a little bike ride now. It's great to have you all here. Let's real quick check something. Who's online? Um, he's doing OpenGL, but he complains a lot, so yeah, let's raid Zoding. And I'll be back in like 2 hours, but you did the follow, you'll get the notifications, so see you later. If this button works. Let's call it exercise. No, it doesn't work. Nice. Can you please just... We have to practice that. Well, see ya.